Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You're listening to the Armchair Punditz going out to you on 95.6 One Ummah Radio. This was meant to be a show starting around about 19-20 minutes ago, and in true Pakistani fashion we've started a little bit late, so apologies for that if you've been listening out waiting for us to come on air and get the show kicked off. But as you can understand, Salat al-Maghrib comes and the timings are changing and we're sort of running down all the way from Oxford, so apologies for the slight lateness of the show, inshallah. So as I mentioned, Armchair Punditz, we're back on the airwaves after a couple of weeks, inshallah. We have a very packed show for you, so we'll try and get through as much as we can, and it's going to be a very interesting topic as well. So I'm alhamdulillah joined by our pundits, the regular pundits. We're missing one actually, we're a bit depleted, but I've got Shabazz and I've got Ahmad with me in the studio, so they'll be having a bit of a discussion talking about our topic, which I'll introduce in a little while. And as always, we're looking for your input into the show, so feel free, the phone lines are ready to go. You can get us on 0118 8300. It's 0118 8300, and you can also text into the studio 07909 567 527. That's 07909 567 527. So what's the topic about today? Okay, well, we've been having a bit of a think, and there's a number of things. Well, there's a lot of things, as you know, the pundits can talk about, and that's our job as pundits. We sit there and we have a discussion, whatever comes to mind, we kind of blast it out on the airwaves. There's a couple of things that we thought were quite relevant at the moment, things which really affect our community. So how do I introduce this? Well, I'm going to introduce it with, dare I say it, a bit of a joke, and it's a little bit risky, and hopefully we're not going to get our fingers wrapped for this going out live. And I say joke, it's not really a joke, so before we get any calls and texts coming in saying it's a little bit offensive or whatever, let me just say, please, this is all about just setting the context and introducing the topic, so in no way meant to offend anyone at all. And as I say, it's not particularly funny anyway, to be quite honest with you, but anyway, I'll try and do this. And this is a joke, or an alleged joke, I guess, which I heard many years ago from a brother who is Pakistani. And I'll tell you why I mention the fact he's Pakistani, because that has a bit of relevance to this as we go on, inshallah. So you remember when you were younger and you used to hear these jokes that do the rounds to do with the Englishman and the Welshman and the Scotsman and the Irishman, etc., etc., etc. Is one of those guys, so apologies, but here we go, a little bit cheesy. So there is, let me see if I can remember this right as well, and just in case you're tuning in, you're thinking this has turned into a stand-up show, it hasn't. I'm just introducing our topic today. So let me try and remember this. So if I recall correctly, there was an Englishman, a Scotsman, and an Irishman. So an Englishman, a Scotsman, and an Irishman, and they're all sitting there, and they're sitting just near the edge of a cliff, looking out to the sea. It's a fantastic, lovely summer's evening, and they're enjoying themselves, and they're having a bit of banter, as you do. And after a couple of minutes, the Scotsman opens his bag and he reaches inside and he pulls out a long bottle of whiskey, and it's the finest brown whiskey that money can buy. And he opens the bottle and he has a couple of swigs, and then he shuts the bottle and just nonchalantly throws the bottle out into the sea. And so the Irishman and the Englishman, they're a bit confused, so they look at him in horror and say, I cannot believe you've just done this. This is very expensive whiskey, so how can you just throw the whole bottle away? How can you waste it? The Scotsman gives him a little knowing smile and he says, hey, you know, that bottle of whiskey, don't worry about that. There's plenty of whiskey where I come from. There's plenty more, not a problem. So they carry on having a chat, and then after a few minutes, the Irishman, he sort of opens his bag and he pulls out a couple of pints of Guinness, and so he has a couple of swigs, and then all the rest of the beer, he just picks it up and over it goes into the sea. So the Englishman and Scotsman look at him and they're a bit surprised. Okay, what's going on here? You know, you've just thrown away this high quality Guinness beer, what's happening? And the Irishman gives him a bit of a smile and he says, hey guys, you know, don't worry, we've got loads of Guinness back home, there's plenty more where that came from. And so a few more minutes pass and they're chatting away, and the Englishman starts sweating a bit and he's getting a bit worried here, and he's scratching his head and he's having a think, and just at that moment in time, a Pakistani walks past. So he runs over and he grabs a Pakistani and over he goes, sends him over the cliff. And so the Scotsman and Irishman look at him and think, what did you do that for? Why did you throw this guy over? And he goes, oh, well, you see, this is the thing. Pakistanis have got plenty more where I come from. So apologies for that joke. What is it? It's not a joke. I told you. I warned you before. He's sitting there cringing at home, recreating in the studio. But what's the topic today? Okay, we're not talking about throwing people over the cliff. We are talking today about immigration. Okay, so that's the topic. As I said, it's a massive, massive topic, but we've got plenty to get through. We'll try and touch this from different angles, from different perspectives. What I'm going to do is actually throw the ball over to the pundits, because I think it's, let's get their initial thoughts on this. So, and I'm going to lead in with a question. So Shabazz, Amber, once you've had a chance to give salam, inshallah, Actually, let's just test the mics. Let's see if I can hear you guys. You want to give salam?
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters out there.
Salam, Shabazz.
Assalamu alaikum all.
I think that's perfect. Hopefully you guys heard that as well. Let me throw this to you. Does this country, does the UK, have an immigration problem? What do you think?
I think we have got an immigration problem. That's true. Yeah, we have got an immigration problem. I think the problem we've got, the main thing is there's not all set in store laws in place. They seem to have laws in place, but things go underneath the barrier. They're not going. Things seem to get wrong, sort of thing. So I'm not sure what kind of laws they got in place, but it seems to be one rule for one person, one rule for another.
Okay, Shabazz?
Yeah, I think we've definitely got an immigration problem.
Okay, really?
What are they saying? Since '96, the population's grown by 20% or something like that.
Okay.
I think when they open the floodgates to Europe, there's just had an influx of loads of different nationalities coming to this country.
Okay, so I mean, people are going to turn around, and some people will sit on the fence on this and not really have an answer. Other people listening in will probably agree with you and say there is some kind of issue. I've also heard the argument that really it's being a bit overplayed. Okay, so it's blown out of proportion, and probably the issues regarding immigration being a problem in this country are no different to, say, other so-called developed nations, so maybe the US and Australia and maybe Western Europe and so forth, and it's just a nuisance. So you guys don't ascribe to that as far as you're concerned. You feel there is actually a genuine problem regarding immigration in terms of maybe, let's say, for example, just the number of sheer volume, number of people coming into the country.
I think there's a lot of people unaccounting for. There's not control. I think the amount of people are coming in, I'm not sure. They don't know how many people are here.
Right.
So there's a lot of people sneaking through their sort of
getting through the defences.
Yeah, sneaking through the defensive side of it. But also, and going back to what Shabazz said as well, I think as soon as they open the doors to Europe, it's become a bigger problem. But then when you look at the goalposts, it makes it they sort of push the barriers across to the Asians and the Africans, and saying, well, they're the biggest problem, which I think is unfair. Because we were here from the beginning, sort of thing. Right. In one sense of it, we were invited. Yeah. And once they open the Eastern European side of it, come in, I think there's the guys that have caused a lot of problems.
Okay, all right. Well, let's be right. So this is our opinions as usual on the Pundit Show. This is Amber and Shabazz and myself, and we're not obviously don't describe any of these views to the radio station. Just thought I'd get that disclaimer in there early because we're going to be touching on lots of different things, and some of them may seem a bit controversial. I've got to be honest. I'm a little bit 50-50 on this, and the reason is because. And we'll talk about it a bit later on, because I think the media and politicians certainly have a role to play, and you get the feeling sometimes that they are maybe making it sound as if it's more of a problem than it is. The flip side of it is personal experience, okay, and obviously anyone from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh can relate to this, because when you go to Pakistan, and I always say this in our radio shows, you go to Pakistan, alhamdulillah, and you meet the family and stuff, apart from the assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam, what's the one thing everyone wants from you? Come on, guys, I'm not
money.
Okay, let's go. Apart from money, all right, maybe a mistake. Apart from money, what else is on the list? What are they looking for? Sorry?
Green card.
Yeah, exactly. Sponsor, exactly, right? So people are very interested to know how you might be able to help them come here, isn't it? Oh, yaar, menu sponsor kam, koi forum page, to kuch kar, etc., etc. Find me someone to marry out there. Help me find some technique to get over, okay? To the extent where, and this is very sad, because obviously in Islam, as Muslims, we shouldn't be suspicious of each other, but what it's like now, you go there sometimes and maybe somebody you don't know, or even maybe somebody you do know, and they approach you and you have a bit of a jasha in the afternoon, you're sitting there and it's a cup of desi cha, maybe it used to be the badia, the old days, but these days it's a little bit posh in the cups, but
China cup now.
China cup, yeah, but you know what I mean, fantastic, village scene, very nice, and somebody you don't even know comes and sits down in the manji next to you and you're getting a bit pally and a bit gupped up or whatever, and you're thinking to yourself, what does this brother want? What's really the reason for this sudden friendship and stuff? Why is he getting so pally? And then maybe a little bit later when it comes out and he's looking for that help getting the sponsor page right? So I can see from that point of view, I can see that there is this kind of feeling that people want to come over and that drives the numbers, etc. The other side, I think there is an issue regarding maybe the media overplaying the case. Anyway, regardless of that, the fact of the matter, guys, which I wanted to talk next, is we know the government here, has tightened some of the rules regarding entry. They've certainly tightened the rules regarding settlement and citizenship. So for example, the very notorious Life in the UK test, which I'm sure many listeners have heard of. Why do you guys think they've done that? I mean, the obvious justification is that there are problems with immigration, meaning the system's being abused. So do you think that's the real motivation, or part of the motivation? Is that why you think they've tightened it up, because it was too easy and there are so many immigrants coming in?
I think this is a small percentage of that as well, and obviously the terrorism side of it as well.
Right.
I think that's because obviously the Muslim nation side of it, apparently they're all hidden in Pakistan, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the reasons as well. Obviously the wife situation as well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of sisters are getting divorced and the guys are coming here and they get married again, they get someone else down as well.
Right.
So then they're looking at, and probably in the percentage wise, are probably single parents on the Asian side decide to creep up a little bit. And probably abuse as well. That's probably one of the reasons as well. And obviously, in general wise, if it's increasing as well with the Eastern European side of it, a lot more people are coming in the country, and also the language barrier.
Right.
And are people not probably just able to speak English? And I think that's another thing. They think they want people to able to learn the language to a level where they can communicate.
Okay, but some of these things are to do with. For example, speaking English, or maybe people being more aware of the English culture, and we'll go into that in a few minutes' time. And you can understand that's something which they may aspire to, but the motivation in actually making it harder, I mean, people who are actually trying to come here would say it's harder, right? That's the general perception you get. I mean, I've got some examples in the country as well. So is that really down, when it comes down to nuts and bolts, that's to do with the fact that they feel too many people are coming here, maybe too many people are resident and eventually are settling and becoming citizens. Is that true? And also, is it because actually the existing rules may or may not be sufficient, but they're being abused? And I'm thinking here about fake marriages. People are being put out doing this, right?
Definitely so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. Go on.
No, I think the rules are definitely being abused. That's why they've had to tighten them.
Right.
Got people coming here spending immense amount of money to get into the country to become students, then they run away and work in takeaways or get low paid jobs just to stay in the country.
Okay. So they're obviously breaking and violating the rules, and obviously in terms of fake marriages you hear about this, and this is obviously not only one particular community, by the way, I should point out.
No, it could be anyone.
No, I think it's not just one community, it's spread around across the globe sort of thing, in that sense of where they come from. And I think people have abused the system, and obviously the people who are genuine, who want to come here to study and get themselves proper qualifications, actually make life a bit more harder for them, because they go through the third degree and something that is straightforward probably takes 10 times longer to get in process, because they want to know exactly where you're staying, what school, college you're going for, in what's your proof, that kind of thing. And it's very difficult in that sense. But people have abused the system. That's what they're tightening up. And also there's other things behind it as well, like we touched on terrorism and everything else, and that kind of thing as well.
So given all of that, do the pundits think that these changes that are being brought in terms of new policies, rules and tightening up, etc., the Life in the UK test, for example, do you think they're right? Do you think they're fair? Are they proportionate? Or do you think that even if you buy the line that actually there is too much immigration, which people have that perception, we'll come to that later on again, they think they've gone too far? It's just, it's wrong and it's too harsh. What do you think?
I don't think the only thing that they go too far if they stick by it. I don't think they stick by it.
Right.
The rules are there, but there seem to be still people going through the system.
Okay.
And I don't know how they set their tests about, or what they got their criteria is to a certain degree, but certain criteria are supposed to be met, and these people who do come over still have them. I don't know how they can't speak a word of a language, they can't even read and write, so I don't know how the people are going through the system.
It'd be difficult for them to administer these sort of tests in, say, a foreign country.
Yeah, but this is my point about fairness, because when you say people don't read and write, I mean, for generations, not generations, okay, but last 50, 60 years, people have been coming in and haven't been able to read and write English necessarily. They haven't necessarily been literate, etc. They have had absolutely no idea about English language and history and culture and so forth. And it wasn't an issue then. So some people will have the argument that actually for the government to do this, it's not right and it's not fair. I mean, does that carry water, the argument, and do you disagree with that?
To some degrees it does, because again, these tests and these policies they're going to have to go through, it's all going to cost money, isn't it, for the person on the other side?
Yeah.
But again, I think something had to be done just to get some more robust systems in place so people don't abuse it.
Well, I think the problem you got at the moment is, I mean, people have, like I said, have been abusing the system side, but I think the problem you got is inconsistent. It's not for everybody. It's one rule for one person, one group, one rule for another. And I think like the Eastern European or European people come here, they can't speak a word of English as well.
Yep.
So where do you draw the line? You're saying that that's the rules in place. We want you to know the A to Z about the country, and our basically our cultures and everything else and our history.
Sure.
But then people come from Europe as well, don't go through the same test. So where's the fairness in that?
Yeah.
If you got rules have to be there to be abided, not rules to be given because I want you to have it, but not for someone else. Because at the end of the day, these people are coming over as well, and they need to fit in as well.
You're taking this very personally, Ahmad, by the way.
I was going to say, it's quite heated,
banging the table as
well, it just annoys you, innit? Because I mean, the rules are there to protect people, and the rules at the moment are there to protect individuals, certain groups. And the thing is, if you're part of Europe, it's fine to do. You can do whatever you please. Right. But if you come from the outside, and people seem to forget, people who come from other part of the different worlds that come through, they've actually built this country.
I think. Okay, so I'm going to back up slightly because I think it's two different discussions. I think one is the principle about rights and governance, and I think the second thing is about implementation, okay, and what you're trying to achieve. So I would say that actually the authorities have a right, okay, to within their rights to control immigration, because at the end of the day, that's their responsibility, that's what's expected from them, and they've got to make sure that they look into who's entering their shores, who's allowed to stay here. Fair enough, okay, I don't think we disagree with that. It seems like the view from the pundits actually is that it's not so much the right they have, but actually are some of those rules, not necessarily all of them, but are some of those rules and policies, are they justified? And secondly, do they actually achieve this objective? Are they practical and effective? Okay, so on that point, let's take an example of that. This life in the UK test, alright, do you guys think it really helps or not? I think I know the answer because we're already going a little bit around the houses, but do you think the tests are relevant? I mean, if somebody sits there and they swat up, because I think it's a big book you go through, right? Yeah. But if you go through all those chapters, right, and you swat up and you learn it, and does that really help? Do you ever use that study after?
I don't think so. A lot of the stuff they ask, from what I know of it, is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Some people will just learn it for learning's sake, and then after that, throw the book away.
I think everyone would.
Majority side. I don't think even the people who are born and bred in this country probably know the stuff as well.
90% of it, yes.
Yeah. So even the people, people who are the Caucasian people themselves are born and bred and been for everything, then and then themselves. So for someone to come outside to learn it just defeats the object.
Again, the cynic in me thinks it's just a way to make some more money.
I'm glad you guys have said that. Just before we go into that, so because the feeling I have is exactly that, right? There's some of the things that they allegedly test, you would think that the bits that are kind of practical and relevant, you pick up when you're here, because they have been doing it for generations, right? So it's not an issue now all of a sudden that you turn up and you don't know. You come up, you spend a few months here, a few weeks here, and you learn that. And I think learning English as well, I mean, people who have the motivation, when they come here, they can easily learn English. It's not a problem. I mean, there's so many examples of that as well. But this is the question, this is nicely led on to that, the reservations that you guys have, because you asked the question, how many of the local population have a clue? So on that note, it is now time for us to play a little game. Because believe it or not, it's playtime. And the Life in the UK test show, that's what we're going to do now, because I want to actually throw some questions your way.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. So,
have we got a 50-50 call a friend?
You haven't got any 50-50, you can call me a friend. Yeah, apologies guys. And look, I know, apologies because you're giving me some looks here. And it has come as a surprise, so I know I didn't tell you guys this, but I wanted to make it very kind of genuine as it is. So I'm putting the pundits, if you're listening in, I'm putting the pundits on the spot now. If you're listening at home, and you want to play along a little bit as well and test your knowledge, feel free to do that. Obviously what we can't do, because the Life in the UK test, I think the actual test itself is something like 24 questions. You've got to get 75% right, okay, to pass, and you get about 40 or 45 minutes. So we haven't got that kind of time, and I'm not giving you 40 minutes here, and I'm not going to go through 24 questions. What I'm going to do, quick fire, Alright, quick fire, guys. I'm going to go through about 12 questions. That's half a test, alright? And these are picked randomly. There's various websites out there which have practice questions, and they're up to date. So these are the kind of questions that somebody who is looking to get settlement here or citizenship or whatever, they've got to do in the test. Now, you can confer. It's not hands on buzzers, by the way. You can confer, inshallah, no problem at all. Alright, I'm going to keep an eye on the mobile phones, no cheating, obviously no internet here. You can confer, and I want one answer from you as I read these out. And if you're listening at home, try not to do the Google side of it. See if you can genuinely answer these questions or not, okay? So number one, guys. Which of the following is not required for a new car, okay? MOT test, seat belts, road tax, or car insurance?
Amber, you should know this. Car salesman.
As a car salesman, Amber, and a new car salesman, I would really hope you know this.
I need to. I still want to think.
Yeah, don't do that. Go on, right? Come on, guys. Let's get crack through this because we haven't much time. So
MOT.
MOT test, right? That's your answer there. We'll come on to the answer, the results later. Number two, an adult person receiving unemployment benefit should join the New Deal program if he or she has been unemployed for. Is it 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, or 24 months?
I wouldn't know. I've never been.
Never been.
But I would say 6 months.
6 months? Does that sound about
Yeah,
right?
6
12
months.
months probably.
Really?
Or one of the two guys, so you have 6 or 12.
6 months. 6
6 months.
Yeah, we'll go
6 months. Alright, so you guys are going to 6 months there. Okay, that's fine. Number three. What percentage of children lives with both their birth parents? Is it 45%, 50%, 55 or 65%? I'm getting some vague looks here, guys. So this is not only stab in the dark by the sounds of it. Any ideas?
Is that married?
Well, not married, but with their birth parents. Okay, so
they're
Okay.
with their parents.
50%.
50%. Anything
Yeah,
from Shabazz?
I'd say
50% as well. All right, so let me put that
Age
down.
is probably 95%.
100.
Yeah. The overall percentage. Number four, okay, and this one I hope you do get this, guys, I really do. Number four, the voltage supplied to almost all properties in the United Kingdom is 110, 150, 240 or 480 volts. Come on, guys, don't give me that. What's the voltage supply?
240.
Yeah, I'd say 240.
I hope it is that as well, but I'm going to mark it as your answer, inshallah. Alright, so you're saying 240. Very good. Let's move on. Number five. A newborn baby should be registered with the Registrar of Births within, is it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or 6 weeks? This is in England and Wales, just in case you've got the Scottish blood in you. You're saying 6, Shabazz? Are you going to go with 6? Or are you
Yeah,
going
we'll
to
go
6 weeks.
Okay, Amber's looking confident, so obviously,
He
being
did
a
sound
parent.
confident. He steered me there.
Being a parent, alhamdulillah, hopefully you know this as well. Okay, number 6. Here's an interesting one, guys. Alright. What percentage of the population lives in Wales? Is it 5%, 6, 7, or 11%? Come on, boys.
6%, I reckon.
What, we go for 6?
Yeah.
6 sounds good, alright. I'm getting a lot of vacants there, so I'm getting very worried about this. Alright, anyway. Boys, your citizenship is on the line, basically. I don't put any pressure on. I've got UK border and agency standing by outside in a van, so you better get this right. Number 7. After the Second World War, where did British textile and engineering firms send agents to find workers? And your options are Australia and New Zealand, Poland and Switzerland, India and Pakistan, or Ireland and Belarus.
India and Pakistan.
India and Pakistan. That looked like the obvious one.
Zindabad.
Zindabad. Yeah, shukr, we're getting somewhere. Okay, now number 8. Oh, that's an interesting one. Okay, how much maternity leave can women take? Is it 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 13, or 26 weeks?
26.
26.
26? Oh, okay, you seem very confident on that. You didn't need to do the 50-50, which we don't do
Depends
anyway.
if it's paid or not.
Yeah, okay, well, no, I'm going to move on. So, number 9. Number 9, and this is more of a political one here, I guess. When did the European Union originate? Are we saying it's just before the First World War? Is it just before the Second World War? Is it immediately after the Second World War, or is it just after the First World War? Any ideas?
Second.
Yeah, after second, I'd say.
You say
Second.
So you're saying before or after the Second?
After
The Second World War. Okay. Okay, let me just update that so it's got your answer on it. Okay, number 10. We're near the end here, I guess. So start breathing. Number 10. What is the current minimum wage for workers aged between 18 and 21? All right. So, you might know this one. Do you want to shout it out then? No, let me go through the options because we've got listeners here as well who might be playing along. There's nothing better to do, I guess. But anyway, if you're playing along, right. So the options are minimum wage if you're between 18 and 21 is either £3.85 an hour, £4.10, £4.45, or £5.35.
£5.35.
Conferring. I like that. Bit of conferring. What a game shows. Game shows on TV. It's not a question of sport, but okay, let's carry on. Number 11. We're near the end. Where did the first immigrants come from after the Second World War? Is it Europe, the US, Africa, or Asia? Right, so the first immigrants after the Second World War.
Can you have those?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you absolutely can. Yeah, I'll repeat it, but I'll do it only once. Europe, US, Africa, Asia.
Africa.
Okay, interesting. All right, and now the last question. Okay, this is another interesting one. What ratio of first-time, i.e. young voters, actually go ahead and vote? Okay. Is it 1 in 4? Is it 1 in 5? 1 in 6? Or 2 in 5?
1 in 6.
1 in 6.
1 in 6, yeah, okay. Ta-da! Time is up. Okay, so alhamdulillah. The guy, I think we're about there's a sweat dripping around here, and the guy's looking very tense. And if you've been playing along at home, alhamdulillah, that's it done. Now I want to go through some of the answers. While I do that, while I just total up the score, it'll take me a minute or so to do that. You guys just want to share with the listeners. Obviously, we didn't do the 45-minute thing here, but just what your feeling was, perception of I guess, how hard you thought it was or wasn't, and B, was it really useful or not? Are there kind of things that you think would be that practical or things that you could learn anyway? Do you want to just think about that?
I think some of the stuff obviously is good to know. I think the most important thing for myself...
I don't think any of it was relevant for your day-to-day life.
I think the most important thing is that when you do any kind of test about survival skills, and what you need. And if you tell someone, well, you need to be in this period of time to be out of work to claim benefit, and put some ideas in people's heads.
Would you want to know that, or would you go out and find
I think you wouldn't know that. They need to know these kinds of things, but I don't know why they're putting these things in people's heads for anybody.
Exactly.
So we need to do that. I think the World War situation is... Okay.
It's not relevant, is it?
It's history, and it's nothing to do with why you want to come here, because you're not going to be involved in that situation. Well, it's sometimes good to know some kind of ground knowledge, but are you really going to be when did this happen, when that happened? Be honest, I don't think any of it is really relevant to what for the test was.
And does it make you more British if you know that sort of information? I think it does.
I think the general British people don't know themselves.
I reckon most of them don't. There was a programme a couple of months ago where they took this test out to some normal middle-class white kids and adults, and none of them knew it. They were worse off than the actual foreigners.
Well, I think this is kind of what we're measuring here. So I'm in a position now to give the results, and I have to say, guys, and I'm very sad to say, that you may as well give up your British citizenship.
Oh no!
So on the next boat home,
our passport is gone.
On the next plane home, I think, boys, you're back to Pakistan.
What do we get?
It's been good knowing you. But what did you get? I mean, going through it, the pass mark was 75%, which out of 12 questions would be 9. You guys hit it right on the dot, 50%. So you got 6 out of 12. Okay, so there is a bit of room for improvement there, but there is still a long way to go for you to be.
I thought that's better than I thought.
Is it better than you thought? Okay, so
I thought we'd get back 2.
I think we should at least get on borderline.
Yeah, exactly. Live some rubbish like.
Well, unfortunately, it looks like Her Majesty Malika Sahiba, Queen Elizabeth, is not going to be very pleased with that, because you're obviously her subjects in this country and you haven't done a good job.
No.
So and obviously, unfortunately, I don't want to go through all the. If you're listening at home and you have been answering the questions, I don't want to go through this in detail with all the questions again, but I can rattle out very quickly the answers. So if you've made a note somewhere. Well, I think what we'll actually, easiest thing is you've got our contact details at the end, because otherwise it's going to take time. And you've got the Armchair Punditz email address, which is armchairpunditz@gmail.com. So Armchair Punditz, all one word, pundits with a Z, @gmail.com. So if you really are interested to know whether you beat the pundits and you managed to secure your right to be here in the Life in the UK test mock-up that we've just done, then just send us an email. I've got the correct answers here for the questions I read out on air, and I can share that with you. Okay, fine. So messing around a little bit there. But that proves the point. Alright, so sorry to land on you guys. It proves the point, I think, as you just said, that actually people here, we're born and raised in this country, we don't really have a clue. So is it really that relevant? So going back to this, surely this just makes life very difficult, right? For people who are genuine, people who are not trying to abuse the system, but the vast majority who actually legitimately, they've got married, they're trying to bring their spouse here, for example, and they've got to go through all this red tape that you highlighted. And let's look at some of these things, because I mean, we're talking about the bureaucracy, the number of forms and paperwork. We're talking about level of English now, I think, which has changed, so it has to have a certain level of English. What else are we talking about?
Income
funds,
now,
income, funds to support dependents and proof of that. I think has the length of stay changed as well regarding permanent settlement? Okay, so lots of issues. Life in the UK test, which is done, so that's a problem as well. Okay. So now, on this point, because having made it so difficult, is it fair to say the majority of people who get married from abroad in this country are probably from, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh? Yeah. So would you then say, you kind of said it already, but would you then say that these rules, these new rules, this tightening of the rules, effectively is discriminating because it's targeting certain ethnic groups?
Yeah, definitely so.
Okay.
I'd like to know if it's been put in place in somewhere like, I don't know, Italy or Poland or somewhere Eastern European countries, but it seems to be targeting the Asian countries, it seems anyway.
So, okay, so, I mean, is this, just quickly, is this really gonna, the fact that it's harder, is that really gonna stop?
No.
No? It's not going to stop people wanting to. Would you not think
No.
twice, though? If you're in that shoot, would you think, oh, actually, maybe I don't want to get married to Pakistan, etc., difficult? Or do you think, actually, no, if you want to do it,
I
you're gonna do it
personally
anyway?
think if you're looking for, in general, the term, I think people are not going towards Pakistan as much as they used to. It's still people do. People, so you still get a percentage of people will go to Pakistan and get married in that sense of it. But I think the things are changing now, where people are born up here thinking, do you know what, they won't get married to someone, still get married to a Pakistani and that kind of thing, but get married to someone who's probably from here, who understands them better. Because obviously all the problems where probably the stats will show the successful rate of marriages where people have had issues with husbands or wives or vice versa, and that sense of it. But I mean, that's probably gone down, but it's never going to stop from people from going back home, because people will still go back home and get married, because there's always going to be some kind of loophole which you can cross.
Definitely so.
Yeah, so I was going to say that it seems that anyone who's actually determined to abuse the system, they always find ways of slipping through.
Yeah.
They find ways around it. So what you're really doing, it seems, actually, you're just penalising legitimate people. You're making life very difficult for them. And then, again, we haven't got anyone from the government or the council or anybody here to defend themselves, but would you then say that by and large, it seems as if a lot of these rules, certainly things like Life in the UK test anyway, is not just more red tape, but it's a chance to increase the revenue? Yeah, I mean,
it's a factor. It's like anything.
Yeah. Right.
If you look at driving tests, and we used to do it, now it's got theory tests, and it's all a money making scheme.
Yeah.
It's more money, and it's like the government wants more money to find ways. I don't know what the payments are now for these tests, about a couple £100.
I suspect it's quite a lot. And then actually, when you think about it, it all adds up, because obviously you've got the tests, the visa fees, because obviously the visa to entry, then settlement, and you have to stay here as well, and citizenship ceremonies, all these things add up, I think.
I think so. You're probably looking at a couple of £100.
That's about £400, I think, now.
I think that's just for the test, though. But if you add it, we're looking at thousands of pounds actually to get that, and it sounds like it's getting much harder now.
Like you said,
very difficult.
Some person might think, do I want to really go through all the hassle?
Yeah.
Why don't I just find a wife or a get married here?
I think there's a lot of a situation of we're having, there's people from Asia side of it have been targeted for reason of this marriage situation, and also the terrorism laws and everything else. But what people tend to forget, what from the people from the Asia part of the world have contributed in this country, and if you look at the stats and how much these people are actually worth on paper, they're multi-millionaires. Yeah. So we built this country to a certain level, to stand where we are. Our own dish is the national dish. Yeah. That's how big it is. And I think in property levels, in doctors, in medicine, in accountancy, in finance, anything you look at, in the building trade, wherever you look at it, the Asian people in that community have made a big influence to the economy in this country, and we built it in that sense of it, and that's why England the UK stand in the whole of the world in better proposition than anybody else. Even though we're in a credit encouraging recession side of it, but we're still better off than a lot of other countries.
Well, I want to talk about that actually. Jazakallah for making that point, Armchair Shabazz, because we're jumping ahead slightly, but I definitely want to drill down on the positive side of it. Before we do that, obviously there's the negative image that's created. But we've got a text that's coming from somebody which makes exactly this point, which basically says, Assalamu alaikum to the pundits, if the government didn't want immigrants living in the UK, they would have changed their policies years ago. So they actually do want them here, or at least they wanted them here, okay? Immigrants make good workers for cheap labour, okay? So that's a very good point, and that's kind of along the lines of what we're saying. And I think we'll discuss that in a bit more detail. But before we come to the positive side of it, let me talk about what's being pushed regarding the negative. And I want to get rid of some myths on this show, okay? So there is a public perception, which is, as usual, driven by the media, which suggests some of the things that we touched on already, that immigration is growing, it is a nuisance, and many politicians then play that game. Alright, so although the text message there, the listener, you guys have said as well that politicians understand the value of immigration, but actually, when they need to, they play the game, okay? Right wing, obviously, politicians, they'll point the fingers, and a negative impact is usually highlighted, and obviously now when the economy is bad, in a recession and so forth, there's a lot of scapegoating immigrants by the public at large. So let me rattle off a couple of things here that are common arguments you hear about immigration. Not to say they're right or wrong, we can debate that, right? People will say, immigration, it's leading to high birth rates because the immigrants, they've got higher birth rate and it's leading to a change in demographics and they're going to take over. People just say, look, enough's enough. There's too many immigrants now, and for new ones, they find it very easy to come in. It's very easy to come and stay. A lot of them that are here, they claim benefits. They live off the state. That's another argument. Another one is these guys, wherever they come from, whether it's Pakistan, India, whether it's Africa, they don't fit in. They don't care. They don't fit in with the host culture. As you guys said, they don't learn English. They don't care about our traditions and values, okay? So, these are things you hear, and in fact, it's quite timely. There was a report today, which was on the BBC website, carried out by a think tank. I think it's called NatSen Social Research. So if you're interested, you can dig that out and do a Google search or something. And a couple of points that stood out in that regarding immigration. So they went out and they polled people and they spoke to them. So what do you think about Britain today? Is it being run properly or not? When it came to immigration, it mentions in the report that British people, quote, strongly favour migrants they see to be socially beneficial, end of quote. Okay, well, that's not a big deal. But then it also says that some 51% would like to see immigration levels reduce a lot. Okay, and then a further 24% would like to see levels reduce a little. All right, and that figure, the first figure of 51%, where people want immigration really drastically reduced, has gone up from 39% in 95. So in about 15, 16 years, people's opinions have changed quite significantly if you believe the report and stats and polling, whatever. Okay, so that is suggesting this point that the media or the general perception in the public is negative now about immigration, not positive. They're not really looking at the benefits, I suppose, because no one's really pushing that right now. So, on this point, I want to just get your views and opinions on it. How much of this tightening of the rules, the policies we've discussed, how much of that is politicians thinking, you know what, we need votes, and the public are thinking they're kind of not anti-immigration, but they're not as happy about it as they may have been before. They're not as predisposed to it. So how much of that is to satisfy the public, or how much of it is actually meaningful policy and really is about clamping down on immigration?
It's about satisfying the public. It's nothing. If you look at it, every politician said, if I come in power, I would do this, I would do that. But none of them actually imply it because they can't physically do it.
Yeah, I agree.
They can't physically do it itself because in the day, I don't know what the stats are, how many actually immigrants are in the UK, but there's going to be a high percentage of them. But if you look at it in general wise, is no way they can physically do anything to actually eradicate that. And if they did, the UK were the big losers. They will lose. They lose billions. And they're actually at the moment they're on cloud nine at the moment because of a certain amount of immigrants in this country and where we put them standing. If they actually get rid of that, they will go down the pan because the UK Caucasian public wouldn't do the work what we're doing.
That's interesting. That's it. Shabazz, any ideas on that? I
completely agree. It's these same politicians that are singing about stopping immigration and clamping down and putting caps on here, there. They're the same politicians that wanted migrant workers to do the jobs that the British public didn't want to do.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that maybe that explains the so-called contradiction as well. Because you hear anecdotally, I spoke to my father. He spends time in Pakistan, and he said that actually there for students it's quite easy to get visas and come to the UK. Yet when you're living here, the public perception or the media are carrying these reports about politicians being tough on immigration, especially the Conservatives or whatever. Yeah. And I would agree with you. The main driver is economic. So guys, it does seem as if politicians know the value, but obviously they're not necessarily going to talk about it too much. So if you look at universities, point taken, they look abroad. They're actively recruiting, actually. They want people.
Especially in places like China.
Because the fees are so much higher. And in fact, I'll tell you something. I've got a table. Let me just bring that in before I...
Just going quickly on that as well. If you look at on the section on the nursing medicine centre, there were shorter nurses about 10 years ago. Yeah. And they had to go abroad. And mainly they went to India and recruited nurses from there.
Well, just look at that. That's perfect, because the graphs I've got... So what I did, I did a bit of research for the show, which makes a change, so a bit of research. No, alhamdulillah, we always do research for the show, obviously. But if you go online, you can go to the UK government information website, so the official stats that they have, and they publish stats on an annual basis, but also a quarterly basis. So here I've got some figures related to year 2011. Top 10 nationalities outside the European area, okay, who were given visas for work. And your point is exactly right. The number one nationality in thousands by a long way is India. Is then followed by Australia, the US, Philippines, and Pakistan is down the league table at number 5, okay? So
we're never number one, are we?
And listen, well, mind you, it's for work, isn't it? So we'll be number one for work. We're not DNA to do. Okay, the second thing, just while we're on this, looking at the graphs and the data they've got, if you then look at the top 10 nationalities regarding study, visa for study, okay, that is maybe a bit more as you'd expect. So Pakistan comes in number 2, neck and neck with India, really. There's only a couple of thousand difference here and there. US number 4. Number 1 is China. Again, by a long way compared to the other nationalities, okay? And then you've got, like, say, Malaysia, Hong Kong, etc. So I think it bears up the point that exactly the point that you guys are making, that economically speaking, which is actually the main driver, I think politicians, authorities understand very well, thinkers understand very well, the benefit to the economy far outweighs what they think is the so-called damage. So we talked about universities, low-paid jobs. I mean, you look at cleaners, car washers, restaurants, Shabaz's point, takeaways. They're normally immigrants. No one can dispute that. Doctors, nursing staff. I can't remember a time I've been to A&E and probably seen a non-Asian doctor. Not to stereotype, but that's a reality. Nursing staff, I completely agree on your point with that. And then other positive things that immigration has brought, okay? I mean, probably maybe your standard Joe Blogs person is sitting there thinking, have you brought anything positive? And there's short memory, because obviously, as you said, cuisine, culture. I mean, I don't think, there's a joke, my manager at work, we had a discussion, I don't know where we were, I think it was Cyprus, for a work trip recently, a couple of months ago. Very nice, Cyprus, alhamdulillah, very fantastic, interesting seeing the culture and history. And what a surprise, we went round a corner in Cyprus, what did we see? Indian restaurant. Okay, so, and I said to him, he was laughing, and I said to him, if you went to the moon, I would be surprised if Neil Armstrong, the first thing he hadn't seen was, the Bengal dancer or spice of India or whatever there, because the reality is wherever you go in this country. Worldwide, Indian food is number 1, etc., etc. So I think there are so many positive things that that people have brought, immigrations have brought to this country. Yeah. Okay.
I think people's perception have changed. It's not that our politicians would say anything and get their votes. It's the media. Yeah, I think the media is the biggest problem, where they actually, anything we do, even if we just went around the corner and we fell down, it'd be a big story. Muslim come in, they fell down, and anything to do with it, I think the Muslim in prime time at the moment is targeted. Yeah. Anything we do that is probably just one bad apple, well, next minute everybody in the same basket are bad. One bad egg, I say the rest are bad as well. And I think the media is the biggest thing that's making people thinking differently.
I suppose from the government's point of view, what they're trying to do is say, we need to have immigration because of the benefits it brings to the economy. But at the same time, we've got to try and be seen to be doing something. So I think that's where this concept of filtering has come in, isn't it? So what they're saying, for example, I think in the work environment, is that if we will issue work visas, so we haven't got a problem with you coming into the country, but it's on the basis of high demand, right? So the skill shortage, the kind of things that we need. We'll issue student visas because that helps pop up our education sector, because they're struggling right now. And also a side benefit of that is the fact that students need jobs. whether they're from here or from abroad, and that will mean that the takeaways and the factories and whatever else get cheap labour.
But what you got to remember as well, if you look at the university, the college, people come in, they spend thousands of thousands.
Yeah, they do.
But they're saying this thing,
Yeah.
like, we're going to spend for our children £9,000 a year at the moment,
Yeah.
But these people who come over, they spend 20, 30,000 for 1 year.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So then in theory, if they start immigration, they'll be losing a lot of money. And obviously the government will not be able to do that. And in that sense, if you look, especially if you're living in a town like Oxford, like we do, you got the universities, you got the colleges there and everything else. And the amount of people come, tourism they get, people from out of the country, is just, if you take them all out, it'd be like a ghost town.
It will be. It'd be like somewhere up north, like Hull or Middlesbrough,
Not
a
that
ghost town.
Not that we've got anything.
Well,
else
it's
no, definitely
that's the
not.
situation. I think immigration is. I think there is a few little minor issues they've got, but I don't think is a big major thing what they make it out to be. But like I said, I think the problem you've got at the moment, because we're in a recession, things are a bit hard, and people think, you know what, other people got jobs, maybe if they weren't here, we'd better job for us. But at the same time,
it's just
would they do that job anyway? That's the question.
Exactly.
There's still jobs out there. There's still car washing jobs out there. There's
They're very
still
low paid, aren't they?
working at a local restaurant, takeaway, that kind of thing. But people don't want it. People are going for a higher job. But then these people are willing to work, and they're willing to do it and work hard to earn themselves a bit of money where they can look after themselves. But a normal guy down the road probably wouldn't do it. He said, no, well, I'm better than that.
But one thing though, I mean, so there has been a lot of noise actually in the media and stories about a lot of regarding student visas. This is that the government's clamping down, so they're shutting down so-called fake colleges. I think one of the London universities as well had their right to issue some of these visas revoked, and that got a lot of coverage in the media. So somebody might look at that and say, well, actually, it seems like they are really being tightening the law here, and they're being careful. So are you guys saying that actually the government still wants students from abroad? It's just the case of preventing some kind of abuse and making sure that the students are here in a legitimate, controlled way?
Exactly.
Right, okay.
I think it needs to be a bit more legitimate side, but at the same time as well, I think people who are legitimate as well actually get cast about it as well. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are here legitimate to study and maybe have got a part-time job on the side to the upkeep, and then if we were all students, and we were all doing the same as well. When you're a student, you can't just live off your student pool. We're doing a random search, and then suddenly there's any Asian people down there doing a random search on, and it's the same thing there. And I think people are, we are used as basically targeted, and I think in that sense that is unfair, and it is. I think it's very unacceptable, because considering what we've actually brought to the country.
I think so as well. Actually, on that point, it's quite interesting. If you were being a cynic, or maybe not being a cynic, maybe it's the issue of just being a realist and doing some fairly, if you like, simple analysis on where this is all going and what's driving it. You'd look at it and say, okay, there are three main routes in, I think, into the country. So one is work visas, obviously. One is student visas, which we've covered. The third is marriage, which we touched upon. So you have your spouse. And of the three, when you look at it, really the marriage is the one that isn't really economically beneficial, right? No. The other one's going to help, right? So whether it's the education sector and people spending money, whether it's coming in here and basically working, or I suppose the tourist visa as well, and there's plenty of tourists that get those visas. And when you actually, I was just thinking about this the other day, and I thought it's interesting because that one really is a headache for the government, because that isn't necessarily great for the economy. And that's why you tend to find, if you look at some of the measures, they're more draconian. It's actually more harsh trying to get your spouse here, because that is the government saying, well, actually here it's not effective for us, and there's no real benefit, so let's just clamp down here and make it harder for people to bring their wives in.
I think that's the biggest problem for the government, is where what is a genuine wedding and what is not a genuine wedding. And I think are they married to actually because they want to get married, spend time together, live together in the country, or they're here because he or she wants to be here, and then suddenly it's a bogus wedding. And I think the cases are gone sky high. I don't know exactly what the stats are, but the stats are probably getting quite high on them, where there's a lot of marriages happening and they're not working out. And
that's the case with any wedding, though, isn't it? It's
but
it
is a fact. I think the biggest problem you got, if you're getting, I think it's not a situation you're getting forced. Obviously, there is some cases where forced marriages.
I think
in forced marriages, and obviously but especially if you look in the Pakistani community side of it, they like to keep it in house, like in the sense of like from cousins and vice versa, get marriages from there which have been promised, and that kind of thing, and suddenly you're pressurized in doing it, but because you haven't got that connection, that understanding the person doesn't understand you don't understand them, and they think, well, eventually it'll come along. But the culture difference is a big factor. And then the influence of back home, supporting the families from back home as well, not spending enough time with your current family, i.e. your wife and children, which can cause an issue, and for the marriage to be a success or failure as well. And some people go with it and embed it and take years and years and years and get through. Eventually, when the children are older, they're settled down, and after they build that and the nest together. But sometimes it's too much for people.
Okay, so let's not go off on tangent on that one, Amber. So
sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, exactly. We could be here for a long time, Shala. There's so many things that we can discuss, and as I said at the beginning, it is a massive topic. But the point I wanted to make, actually, or maybe discuss with you guys, but I think we kind of agree, is that even if you look at the issue of marriage and letting people come in, there is also some kind of economic thinking behind that. Maybe not so much now, but previously. I mean, if you go back, you said quite rightly, guys, it wasn't so much the UK government's very kind-hearted approach that let's just let these guys in. What was driving it was the whole point that the economy after the Second World War was shattered. They needed people to come and do manual labour. And so a lot of the first generation, if you like, that came from countries like Pakistan, India and so forth, they came in, the population was lower, manual jobs were plentiful, you could support your spouse, so there wasn't a problem. They come in, bring your spouse in, because we haven't got an issue regarding population, and we know it's not going to be a drain on the economy. So in that perspective as well, you can see that in origin that was an economic decision as well. And that's how they seem to view all these things. Forget that, let's just look at this instead. I want to just throw the question out. All of this we're talking about was more to do with red tape, difficulty, coming in, not coming in, motivation, government, media, etc. Fine. What actually drives immigration to the UK in the first place? Why do people want to come here? I mean, what are their thoughts here?
They see, from what I can see, a promise of a better life. I don't know, they seem to think there's a silver lining here somewhere.
Status, isn't it? Proving going to marry is status, money. Automatically, it's like UK is money, and I
think they say money, but easy money as well.
Easy money,
and they think money grows on trees. And obviously, you've got the health service as well, which you think if you get ill, that kind of thing. And I think it's probably a bit of independency as well.
Okay.
And opportunity. It's opportunity.
Opportunity, isn't it? All right, so let's look at it. Reality is most immigration, if not all of it, is for economic reasons, right? It's to make a better life. So people are not really coming to the UK because of the weather or the fish and chips or the steak and kidney pie or whatever.
Possibly. You never know.
You never know.
Try something different.
Some pagal somewhere who says, I'm going to the UK because machi khani and the chippers khani. Reality doesn't happen, okay? It's because a lot of these places are actually colonized by yours truly, former colonies from yours truly. They're still suffering from, corruption, public governments, etc. And people in desperation need to get out. And actually, when you think about that desperation, you hear some of the stories, isn't it, guys? I mean, you hear about stowaways who are taking enormous risks trying to hide away on planes, on boats, on lorries. Many of them actually don't make it here. So that makes the obvious point that we know that things must be very tough back home for you to risk that. But what I wanted to do is say, okay, fine. We can kind of understand their motivation, but do we have a portion of the blame as well? Do we sometimes give the wrong perception and image?
Yeah, of course we do,
Yep.
Okay, go on, how do we do that? So
well, I think when we go back to Pakistan or wherever we go sort of thing, we come in with a nice clean suit on, clean shaven,
exactly.
We got the scent on, we got a big smile on the face, come here mate, got tea, coffee.
Even though we don't
I'll buy you dinner today, sending you the gifts coming out, and you got money in your hand sort of thing. So we do show off. And I think in that sense of it, people look at it and they think, do you know what? I want his life. But they didn't realise the other side of it. This guy works 10, 12 hours a day. And the other side of it. But here's for him, it's a holiday. He wants to masturbate, he wants to relax and chill out. But at the same time, people don't see that reality side of it. And that's the impression we give. And when people say it and they think, do you know what? I want his life. When they come here,
it's reality. It's a reality, right?
Culture shock.
Because you're right, we go there and basically we're smashing the rupees, because we're thinking, ek pound patani 150 rupiya banna, so we're doing the maths. We're thinking, I can afford to do that. Now, the problem is, if you do it in the right manner, in a proportionate way, that's one thing. As you said, what you do, you create an impression, because you turn up there, you might well be somebody who's is doing a very tough 12-hour shift here, working sort of 50 weeks of the year, and then the 2 weeks that you go back, The impression you create is यार
I'm a king.
मैं manager मैं तो MD बने यार and so the people look at that and think, you know what, actually money does go on trees. It must be easy out there. What am I doing here? So you have no incentive then to even think about working in your own country, because things are quite tough anyway. You want to go abroad and take that risk and come out. And then just to top it all off, we said, okay, well, what we're going to do is after 2 years, 3 years, 5 years in the UK, we'll build that koti. We'll make that massive 5-story mansion in the village, so it looks like, for miles out you can see it, and that all adds to the effect. So I think we do have an issue there, and a portion of the blame it's wasted. And that's a problem for us. And I think also the other thing is that for every immigrant who can come and settle here, and whose story actually everyone does listen to because he's made it, and because he goes back after a couple of years and he's wearing his Armani suit and boots are polished and whatever, there's also probably countless others who don't make it, whether they perish, whether they go back or whatever, deported or whatever, and nobody listens to them. Because I've hardly heard, you only go back to Pakistan, you speak to cousins and family and stuff, nobody talks about the guys who haven't made it.
No, exactly.
They just focus in on that one guy who made it, because that's that is what we want to achieve.
That's the pinnacle, isn't it?
Alright, okay. Well, let's move on, guys. A couple more things, inshallah, we want to talk about. The first thing is, I want to actually break some myths. Okay, so we mentioned some negative points earlier about the perception of migration, the kind of viewpoint that maybe the media pushes. Okay, so we haven't got time to cover all that, obviously. The first thing I want to talk about is, are immigrants really a drain on the economy? Because a lot of white, people, English people, born and bred in this country, whatever, they will look at it and they will think, these guys, they claim benefits, they're out to defraud the system.
They take our jobs.
Etc. So are we really a drain in the economy? Do we really just, as immigrants, I'm not saying that we as in us three pundits here, although I'm sure we come into that grouping as well, but do immigrants really drain the economy, and are they a burden on the state or not?
No. The thing is, I think we have a never say die attitude. We keep going, and we would do whatever we can to have actually a better life for ourselves. I think that's a good thing to have in ourselves. I think there is, but if you look at in general wise, if you look in London, places like Oxford, the crime rate is very, very low on the immigrant side. The reason being is built out, there's jobs available. When you start getting up north, you start getting the crime rate start to raise, but then you get the crime rate in every single race, whether you're black, Asian, white, whatever sort of thing, but that because the economy on that side, there's no jobs there. But in that sense of it, if you go to the other side of it, where there is jobs, it's not a problem.
Interesting.
So it's easy to blame.
The
immigrants.
It is easy to blame, because you see them as something different.
Scapegoating type situation.
And you're not
to say they're a drain is quite unfair as well, because a lot of them do come here and work. None of them come here and jump on the dole queue because they can't.
Well, they can't, exactly. They haven't got the paperwork. And I suppose the other things, what would really help to settle the debate, or at least help point the debate in the right direction, will be meaningful figures, some stats if we had them. I don't really have them to hand, but I would kind of go with what you guys have said, and that is that, in terms of claiming benefits or committing fraud in terms of the systems, I don't think it's any more than other non-immigrant groups, right? So I think we're kind of okay. And I think the other thing as well is that if you think about it, most immigrants come here, vast majority, the ones that have leave to stay or become citizens, they get jobs, right? And they pay tax like anybody else. And as you guys have already said, and we've discussed on the show, you could say they actually contribute very significantly to the well-being.
We pay more tax.
Do the jobs nobody else wants to do, which is very, very
double
important.
Treble time.
I think if you look at the elder generation, for example, right from the beginning when they came here, they worked through thick and thin. They were doing like 12, 15, 16-hour shifts. They actually came, and their work actually helped rebuild this country in Prosper, which I think Armchair Punditz, you guys have mentioned as well. And this was actually funny. This is despite the fact that at that time there was this overt racism, discrimination, things which maybe we don't suffer to the same extent now. And many of them now are actually plagued by ill health, but you don't hear them complaining. And you certainly don't see them living off the state. So I think that's a very important point to make, I think, as well. Second, something else that I think Ambadi touched on, maybe Shabazz, some time ago, which I wanted to just get your views on is, isn't it also the case, when we talk about claiming benefits and living off the state, this perception that people have in the wider society about immigrants, isn't it the case that immigrants, especially Asian immigrants, they still have a strong social structure, like a family support unit? Meaning that those that aren't employed and could go to the dole queue and claim benefits, a lot of the time, they actually look to their family, don't they? So in a way, they're actually less likely to claim benefits. Is that a valid point?
Support group. If you look at the stats side of it, is there's not many Asian young women who are single and got a flat or got a house. The situation with the Caucasian people in general is women who are non-married, have children, and the reason there was an article in the paper where they were doing it to get pregnant so they can have their own accommodation. So in that sense of it, I think the culture side, the family-oriented culture in the white family is not as good as the Asian family because they're compact. And the families make sure when they have children, they are married and they are prepared. And they will support them in that sense of it. That's one of the reasons they probably get married at a younger age, so they can stay away from these problems, that side of it. Not saying all of it's right. There are some things we can learn and improve and make a better situation for ourselves. But that's when we have children, we are prepared, and there's a husband and wife living together when we have children. There is occasions where guys, girls and boys who have children when they're not married, that side of it, but it's a very small percentage. But it's a high percentage on the Caucasian side of it.
I mean, the thing is, we have to generalize. There will always be specific examples in both communities, all the community, right? And we've got to be very careful that we don't come across and we paint a picture of black and white and things like exactly like this or exactly like that. But I think what I wanted to do here was destroy the image that people have that the immigrant community are pretty much the only ones or the majority who come in here and they just live off the state and they're lazy and they do nothing. In fact, if you look into what you guys have said, you could turn that around a little bit and point the finger in the other direction. If we really wanted to, right. So listen to the Armchair Punditz here. Having our discussion, having our usual, not fighting so much, but opinionated views on various things. We're discussing immigration today. So keep it up to 95.6 FM for the final 2 points I want to cover off, inshallah. The first of the last points is this. And again, this is a criticism that's aimed at the immigrants in this country. And that is, why do immigrants stick together? And we're thinking here, certain areas in various towns and cities, right? It's just like, this is an immigrant area. And they always do that. What do you guys think? Is that a good or a bad thing? Is there any particular rationale behind it?
Acceptancy. Being accepted. Being appreciated for what you are. I think the biggest problem you got in general, probably any country sort of thing, is being accepted. If you're different to someone else in language, the colour of your skin, or your tradition, where you do something, your religion sort of thing, people get a bit thinking, hold on a second, he's not doing the same thing what I do. I'd want to be associated with him because he doesn't do what I do, and people move away from it. And I think the problem with the immigrant side of it, they like anyone, it's even in the people who say out here in the white community, they like to be in their own little group, the people they know, and they very rarely accept someone outside. And even now, recently, from the black community, they're slowly trying to accept it. But even then, they're very skeptical about that as well. So it's like the same thing. The thing is, if you look at in England, you've got Chinatown. The Chinese they got their communities together. The Asians, the Pakistanis, and the Indians, the Bangladeshi community, they got their own communities together. It's the language side of it, obviously bring them together. The religion side of it, that brings them together, and the understanding. That's the most important thing. If you've got understanding, someone who respects you, and the thing is, someone who doesn't speak the language, doesn't understand your religion, your cultures, and they're not going to accept you.
I mean, okay, I buy that as well. I think the problem is, if you look at it historically, why did migrants come and stick together, or immigrants come and stick together? Because it's reassurance. Point you just said, it's a comfort factor. It's easy to be with those who are similar culture, and you have support, and you stick to people that you know.
Understanding.
And that actually is normal, because if you think about it, plenty of expat communities from these countries that are living abroad who are living together as expat communities, and they're not necessarily mixing with the people from the host nation.
I think as well with the amenities that immigrants are probably all in the same area. So there's probably a local mosque that's in the area. There's a local halal food shop in the area, or a Caribbean food shop in the area. It's what they get used to, really.
I think it's very
the same thing in the work. You've got the British Legion, Sunday school, Sunday church. and it's like Sunday roast sort of thing. It's whatever you used to be doing and whatever group you used to do. Because if you say to someone, I'm going to Sunday church, you're not going to have someone who's a Muslim go to Sunday church.
Yeah. Is there a bit of a vicious circle here as well? You know, when people point the finger, but actually you could argue that many places partly become immigrant areas, or that's accelerated because once a few more faces, a few more people, immigrants move in, the existing population moves out because they don't live next door to someone.
That is a perception.
Yeah, it is perception because they don't want an Asian or black person living next door to you.
So in effect,
they feel threatened. They feel threatened, and they feel basically like, well, they're trying to take over, and that's why they move out.
Okay.
But the problem you had at the beginning, us people were never accepted. We were threat. We were there. We were dirt. We were scum. We weren't people that they want to socialise with.
Harsh, Amber, harsh.
No, it's true. It's a fact. You got to say the fact that
you're jumping a little bit.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's what it was.
Into discrimination.
The situation was then they were never accepted, and now they built their little own groups, their own communities out, and now it's a problem.
Okay,
but then if it was accepted down at the beginning, maybe we would have been as tight as it. Maybe it would have been a bit more mixed.
No, fine. Okay, so Jazakallah for your frankness. It's all about being very frank and putting your opinion there, and we can have a discussion on some of these things. It's going to take us away slightly from the discussion, but I will just finish off at this point. I just finish at this point. As what you've just said, that actually by pointing the finger and blaming immigrants for sticking together, when you start moving out and so forth, all you're doing is you're actually creating the problem or helping to create the problem. You criticize others for. Okay. The very last point to finish off the show on, inshallah, is this one. Do you think that there's a little bit of hypocrisy here, okay, when wider society looks at immigration, says it's negative, and one of their maybe not a key argument, one of the arguments is that, look, okay, we can be sympathetic. All right, so we can understand people are coming here, they've got problems back home. Okay, maybe they're coming from the third world, there's corruption, there's lack of employment. But at the end of the day, tough. That's life. They should stay there. Why should they come here and expect to get our jobs or expect to benefit from our first world society? Okay. And the hypocrisy part of this is that it seems to me that maybe the opposite doesn't hold true, right? Meaning that the wider society, people living here, they're quite happy to emigrate for precisely the same logic and reasons, i.e.
a better life.
To make a better life for yourself.
Exactly.
Is that a valid point? Because I see that sometimes, and I think, how can you not see the two different things? Why are you looking at it in a different light?
Well, that's what it is. I mean, they are biggest hypocrites you can meet, because they always want to say one thing, but they do it themselves. They run away from their problems. Well, I can't hack it here. It's too busy. It's always raining here. It's never any sunshine, and they run off to Spain or some other country sort of thing. It's out. And at the end of the day, you can't. Everyone wants to have a better life in that side of it, but like I say, if an Asian person does it, it's an issue. But if they do it, it's not a problem. But like I say, it's a situation that never accepts us.
You're not sparing anyone today. I wasn't saying, by the way, immigration was a bad thing.
If they should practice what they preach. Practice what you preach, and then it's not a problem. You draw people away. If you push people away, then people are going to make their own little groups, and that's what's happened. And now they're moaning and groaning because we don't mix anything else, and then they need to wake up.
We'll be careful. We don't unfairly generalise ourselves.
No, it's a fact.
And also, even though when Amber says it's a fact. But the other thing as well is your point here. I'm going to be careful. Is, people are running away and emigrating. I mean, actually, I'm not saying anyway. Personally, emigration is a bad thing. I doubt very many people are emigrating just on the basis of weather. But it is that point that there's not an issue with you emigrating, all right? Because we might emigrate, you might go to a different country, whatever. And actually, when you look at some of the figures, the emigration from this country, in general terms, I believe has been rising. It's quite significant. Whether people are going to their villa in Portugal or Spain, or whether you're working in US, Canada, Australia. I'm looking at the number of expats in the Middle East. Dubai, I think, they actually outnumber the locals, right? So the Bajari Arabs, they're running around Dubai and actually got a bigger population, which is made up from people who are from abroad. Okay. And interestingly enough, actually on that point, continuing that theme, people who go there, they don't have to worry about paying tax.
Sure.
Unlike immigrants that come to this country. So people seem to overlook that, and that was my point. They don't see that side of things. And that's
but the other side of it as well, people always say about the immigrant side of it, but when they go to their countries, when you even get the white people go to Pakistan to live there and work, and they go to the next level where they actually get full treated up to the top level, respect, they're welcome to their families, they treat them, whatever's in the house, they put on the table to them, they treat like royalty. And be honest with you, we here get slapped in our face. We get slapped. That's the biggest issue we got here. But at the same time as well, is like people, I think you should treat people for what they are. You should respect people's cultures. Because they go on holiday. Let's go to India. Let's see the Taj Mahal. Let's go to China. See the Great Wall of China. Let's go here. Let's go here. Oh, beautiful hospitality people. But when they're here, oh bloody hell, what they're doing in our country, sort of thing.
But
they love our food. They love our food and love the curry, don't they?
Alhamdulillah. we all like the food. Alhamdulillah. All right, Jazakallah, guys. Well, look, I mean, we're going to wrap up the show, inshallah. We've been blabbing on for about an hour or maybe longer. Alhamdulillah. And as we always do, heart on the shoulder, hearts on our sleeve, just say it as it is. So plenty of views there. Hopefully it's been entertaining. Hopefully some of it's been informative. Even if 1% has been informative, that's probably an achievement. But alhamdulillah, that's what the Armchair Punditz is about, inshallah. So Jazakallah if you've been listening into the show today. It's been an interesting one. Hopefully we're back on in a couple of weeks' time. So I'll have the pundits with me, and we'll be venting our fury on something else. At least Mr. Amber will be. I hope you're not going to be.
I believe.
You believe it was. Let's hope you're not whacking the table and throwing the furniture around the studio. But Jazakallah once again. Inshallah, we'll be back on air in a couple of weeks, as I say. Look forward to your company there, and keep it locked on One Ummah FM 95.6. Speak to you soon, inshallah. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.